My name is Brunella Jane Hayes. That's my maiden name. Brunella came from my father, whose name was Burnell. Jane came from my father, whose middle name was James, and of course Hayes. Brunella Jane Hayes. Now, you're not going to know who that is, but my nickname has preceded my name. So my nickname is Bunnie. My father's nickname was Bun, so I became Little Bunnie. Now, I used to travel with my father to Durham, North Carolina, to North Carolina College. My father was working on his master's degree, and I just went along with him for the ride. But while we were riding back and forth between Lewisburg and Durham, which was about 20 miles apart, my father told me about his life.
Yeah.
He was a baseball player.
Oh.
He pitched baseball against Satchel Paige. And he was so proud of that. Except he forgot to tell me that Satchel Paige won. But you know, you look up stuff. And I have a son-in-law named Howie Hodges who looked up all of that stuff. So Howie knows more about Brunella James Hayes than I do. Howie Hodges is my son-in-law. He married my daughter, Elizabeth Louise Jackson, and now they live in Falls Church, Virginia. I talked to Elizabeth. I call her Beth. She's named after my mother, who was Elizabeth Day Hayes. That's child number 1. Then I may get them all mixed up, but I got them. I had them. Then I have Elizabeth. Elizabeth Louise Jackson, Maynard's daughter. Lives in Atlanta. Has 2 or 3 of my grandchildren. Hayes, whom I call my namesake. His name is Hayes Jackson Edmund. We laugh and say it sounds like a law firm. Okay, it may be. So now I'm gonna have to count on my phone, on my finger. That's Hayes, that's Cassie, that's Brooke Lee, and I think that's it. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Brooke has 3 kids.
Oh, they're your babies.
Then there's Luke, Benjamin Jackson, who's in Cornell, at Cornell. And then there's Hayes Jackson, Edmund, who's at Morehouse. And then there's little baby Kevin, who's the sweetest little thing. He calls me Grammy. And we talk on the phone, you know, the FaceTime. Except that he forgets to stand in front of the face thing. So he's all over the place.
So you have 4 children and 6 grandchildren.
That's right.
4 children, and it all began with the knock on the door.
That's right. Now, I was married more than once.
Okay.
That needs to be out there. It's in my book, right?
It's in your book.
Right. Someone asked me the question, or someone implied that being married to one man was what they ascribed to. And I said, are you bragging or complaining? I was married to more than one man. But in my life, where I grew up, I really don't want this to come out sounding wrong, so if you need to edit this, please do.
We will.
I was told that you did not have premarital sex.
Yeah.
That when you did that, you did that knowing that you were going to marry that person.
Yeah.
And I did.
You married them.
Married them.
All 3 times.
All 3 times. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I don't hide it.
Well, we don't know about your first husband.
My first husband was Donald Ellis Burke.
Okay.
I hope I'm remembering the name. because that was so long ago, so
How
long.
old were you when you married?
I was in college.
So you were, wait, you guys used to go to college super early.
Yeah,
That
I was 16.
Yeah, you were 16.
I went to college at 16.
Wow.
I skipped some grades.
Yeah, okay. And then, so you got married. How long were you married?
I wasn't married to him very long.
Okay. And that's that.
And that's that.
And then Maynard came.
And then I stayed in college.
Uh-huh.
I went to grad school.
Mm-hmm.
Maynard was in law school.
Yeah.
And I had a job at the James E. Shepard Memorial Foundation.
Okay.
I was his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
I kept his books. I took notes for him, and that's how I did that. I said how I helped myself get through school.
Yeah.
But Maynard was in law school. I was in grad school. We met going back and forth between law school and grad school because I would type papers for the young men in law school and charge them by the word.
Wow.
So if I typed a paper for 25 words, it was maybe, I don't remember back this far, but it was something like 25 cents a word. So that's how I made a little extra spending money, by typing papers for the boys. They were men, let's call them men, in the law school.
Wow.
Helped me buy new clothes, helped me pay my tuition. My mother and father paid my tuition up to a point. But I went to grad school. I left college, undergrad, and went straight to grad school.
What did you get your degree in?
Business.
Business. You've always loved business.
Business education and business administration. They were two separate degrees.
What were you going for? Like when you said, I'm going to school for business, education, business administration, what was your, before Maynard, before anything, what was your?
To teach.
You wanted to teach?
That's all I knew. My father was a teacher. My aunt was a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher like my father. But when I got there and understood that I could get a master's degree at the expense of the college, I just went on and kept going on. So I ended up leaving NCC with an MBA. Maynard got his law degree, and we moved to Atlanta.
Wait, we didn't talk about the proposal.
Oh, okay, the proposal.
The proposal.
Yeah, the proposal. Okay, so I was living in an apartment. And he had a friend named Ralph Frazier. And Ralph Frazier's wife, Annie Mae, was my sorority sister. So Ralph was supposed to knock on my door. Wait a minute, let me get this right. And ask for Annie Mae. And Maynard knocked on the door and asked if Ralph Frazier was there. And of course, he wasn't there yet. So I invited him in. And I asked him if I could serve him a drink. He said, yes, do you have cognac? And I said, yes, I have some cognac. He said, Hennessy, please. Now wait a minute, y'all. I didn't even know what cognac tastes like, let alone, I didn't know about the Hennessy. But if you remember way back a long time ago, you would take an airplane ride. This was before your time, probably. And they would give you bottles of liquor to drink. You don't remember this, do you?
They would give you bottles of liquor to drink on
the
little
plane.
travel size.
Yeah, on the plane. So all of my bottles, I would just put in my bag and bring home. So I had some Hennessy cognac. And I gave it to him. And I had gone to the dime store and bought the little cognac glasses, you know, the ones that little curled up. And so when I gave him some Hennessy cognac in a proper glass, he went home and told his mama, Mama, guess what? I have finally met a Southern lady who knows what cognac is. And she had Hennessy.
And that's how you...
And that's how we met.
Did you know it was, did you have the same instant connection?
Well, I tell you, now you're making me go way back.
It's important. It's for all of us that are like, you know, believing in fairy tales.
I remember, it is kind of like a fairy tale.
It is.
I remember one situation that I think is important.
Yes.
Maynard and I had married. Well, we married at his aunt's house, Aunt Millie Jordan. She taught at Spelman. And Uncle Bob, her husband, could cook very, very well. So we would always go to her house, and she'd cook, and we'd sit there and eat. They had a son named Bobby, who's in the media, I think is in Chicago. He may still be on the air, Bobby Jordan. But anyway, back to Maynard and me. We got married. We married at Uncle Bob's house. He had the dinner. We couldn't afford to have a big wedding, so we had a small wedding. And our menu was eggnog and fruitcake.
You had a fruitcake as a wedding cake?
Yes, we did.
Did you get married in December?
When did we get married? We got married, yes it was. It was it was in December.
We can let that pass.
And we got married at the little chapel in Morehouse, at Morehouse. There's a little chapel over there.
Yeah.
We got married there.
Wow. And then you guys decided on Atlanta.
Staying in we were already here, okay. I think. No, we weren't already here. Okay, this is when it all gets combobbled.
Yeah.
We were at North Carolina's college, and we moved here.
You moved here?
We moved here because he wanted to move back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a black F. Lee Bailey lawyer. He wanted to practice law. Mm-hmm. So we came here when he finished law school. He came here to take the bar. I was supposed to wait in Durham until he passed the bar. When he took the bar, I came.
Mm-hmm. You weren't going to wait?
Well, we agreed that I would come while he was taking. He had already studied for the bar. Mm-hmm. It was time for him to take the bar. He took the bar. Yeah. And after he took the bar and he got that out of the way, then I came to Atlanta. Right.
And then what was we've had this conversation, but tell me about the day that he decided to run. Like that.
Oh yeah, the Talmadge thing.
Yes.
Okay. That is a good story. Okay. You know, Talmadge has a reputation in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Herman Talmadge. He was not kind to black people. He was a segregationalist. If you Google him, you might find something about him. Right. And he was getting ready to run for office, and nobody had challenged him. Mm-hmm. So he was going to run unchallenged, which meant that he would win. So Maynard qualified, borrowed $3,000 from a friend of ours named Leela Harris Ogden, and went down to the courthouse and qualified to run against Herman Talmadge. Obviously he didn't win, right. But he ran. He ran because he thought Talmadge should not go unchallenged. But what happened was he carried the vote in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. He got more votes in Atlanta running against Herman Talmadge than Herman Talmadge did. Yeah. And the people who voted for him are, guess who? Black people and Jewish people. Oh. Okay. That was the combination that put Maynard, pushed him up. And because he carried more of the vote in Atlanta, it pushed him into a position where he could run for another office. Mm-hmm. And that's when he chose to run for vice mayor. Mm-hmm. He won. Yes. And when it was time to run for mayor, he challenged Sam Massell, who was then the vice mayor, and he won again. And that's how he became mayor.
And then what about you in the whole equation?
I don't know where I was.
Did you find that you lost yourself?
Yes. I lost myself in politics. Yeah. I took on his desire, his claim to politics. Mm-hmm. The fact that he was a politician made me be a political wife. Yeah. Now, I was already active with the NAACP. Yes. I had been active with COA. Mm-hmm. And I guess I had a little bit of activism in my soul. Mm-hmm. So it was not hard for me to do that. It was something that I wanted to do anyway. It just came out.
Mm-hmm. And then, so where did you find your place? Like, So when he won, right? And then there's that picture of you guys when he actually won. Where were you when you found out that he was the first?
When I did that to his cheeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where were you when you found out that he was the first African American mayor of Atlanta? Like, where were you?
We were at the Americana Hotel. I think it was called the Americana. I think now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened that night? Like, did you know it? Were you second guessed that he might not win?
Well, I didn't want to count my chickens before they hatched. So, of course, we all wanted him to win.
Yeah.
But can this black man pull this off? This is Georgia. I mean, this is not New York City. Not that it was any different in New York City, but it was Georgia. But let me go back and say that it was the combination of the black vote and the white vote, the Jewish vote, that got him to win.
Why did you think that? What was your family? What was your family, like your mom and your dad? What did they say? What did they think about your newfound place in Atlanta?
I don't think they really understood it because I didn't really understand it.
But when did you get it? When did your light bulb go off? Like, this is my life.
Well, Maynard and I woke up the next morning and he said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, you should have figured that out before you ran. I used to tell Maynard in a loving way, you put your pants on one leg at a time, just like all men do. So, this is my place, this is your place. I'm going to do everything I can to help. But one of the things that I remember I used to do was I used to have to keep food ready to put in the freezer, take it out of the freezer and put it in the oven and cook it. Because Maynard would bring home guests to eat. So I always had a tuna casserole.
Right.
I called it my tuna noodle casserole. I had that, and that was my main dish. To pull out tuna noodle, I call it noodle tuna, tuna casserole.
And so when did you find your place? Because I don't know if people know this, but walk us through I think one of the, what do you think is your biggest accomplishment to Atlanta that no one knows about? Or you don't get enough recognition for? I know what I think it is.
Well, why don't you tell me, remind me?
I think it's your creation in the MPU system.
Oh, yes. Thank you. See,
That's
so.
No one knew that was your baby.
You're absolutely right. John Calhoun, when I worked at EOA, Economic Opportunity Atlanta, they had something called the Neighborhood Planning Units. And John Calhoun was a community organizer. And I used to get mad at John because he would staple the papers that we would do to pass out on this side and then staple some on that side. They said, John, don't do them like that. Staple them all on the same side and then put them upside down so I can pass them out. He didn't understand that, so he kept stapling them the wrong way, and I kept fixing them.
Right.
But John was a very good community organizer, and I learned a lot from him. The neighborhood planning units were it. That's what I got from John Calhoun. I would go to the meetings with John. It got to the point where I would go by myself to all the neighborhood planning units because the neighborhood planning units became the voice of the people. It was a way for black people or anybody who went to the neighborhood planning unit. It wasn't just for blacks. It was for people who lived in that geographic district. And if I remember correctly, they were called neighborhood unit A, B.
They still are.
They are?
Uh-huh. All the way up until Z, with the exception of, I think it's like Q or something. Like one letter is out of it.
Q. That's
Q.
it. That's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
We're still rolling in your vision.
I'm glad to know that. That is absolutely great.
Now they operate. Now, what was the initial operation? Like, why did you feel this was necessary for?
Because it gave people in communities a voice.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a voice that could be challenged, and they had to vote in the neighborhood planning unit, if I remember correctly.
It still is.
And you had to vote, and the vote that won was the vote that went to the The next level, the Citizens Review Board. Is that what it was called?
And then it goes to the city council and so forth like that.
Yes.
Yep.
So that was the plan, to come up with a voice that would resonate with the people, in the people's communities, no matter black, white, or Jewish, or Chinese, or whatever it is, and they would come up with a vote. And that vote would go before the planning unit, the main one, and that's the vote that would go to the council. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, it is. It's the same thing. You still you got into politics without even knowing you were into politics.
You're right.
Yeah. And then what about how do you? So your book is called First. What is it? Because I can't see.
Memoirs of a Life Well Lived.
Yes.
The First Lady from SWATs.
Yes. So how do you feel about every single mayor since Maynard came out of the SWAT? What is it about the SWATs? What is it about Southwest Atlanta?
Was there another mayor that came out of the SWATs?
All of the mayors came out of the SWATs.
The black mayors?
All of the black mayors for the last 50 years.
Shirley Franklin?
Yeah.
She came out of the SWATs.
Yeah.
Kasim Reed?
Kasim.
Came out of the SWATs.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're making me acknowledge something that just got tangled up in my mind.
All of them. Mayor Keisha, all of them.
That's right.
All of them.
That's the story. I am a PR person now.
You are a PR person. So you got into PR after your divorce?
I got forced into PR.
Okay.
There was a lady who had a beauty shop that she opened in a place over across from Greenbrier.
Okay.
What's the name of that shopping center across from Greenbrier?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about. It's over there by what I think now it's called like Beauty Depot or something.
Yeah, over there. You're right. I don't remember her name, but she wanted to open a beauty shop, and she hired me to do the PR for that beauty shop.
Right.
And I did. We passed out flyers, and we invited people to come and have their hair done. So that's one of the catalysts for me opening First Class. But the main thing that made me open First Class, because at that point I had partners in First Class. And my partners were Ann Allison, Linda Gully, and Billy Aaron. Billy was my partner, and me. And we opened it because people were running up and down the street pointing out my house. That's where Maynard Jackson lives. And then when they would leave my house, they'd go across the Cascade Road and down the street a bit, and they would go down Adams Drive, and they would say, that's where Hank Aaron lives. And now, I don't know how all this came together in terms of timing, but I do know that's when the conversation came up that Hank could live anywhere in the world he wanted to live, but he chose to live in Southwest Atlanta. But Billy and I were partners for a minute or two, and people were running up and down our street showing off our houses. Yeah. And they called themselves tour gals. Now, Tour Gals was a white-owned organization. Yeah. And I said, if anybody can show off our neighborhood, it's us.
Right.
So we're going to shut down Tour Gals, and we're going to start another tour company that can show our neighborhoods. I can show my house, and Billy can show her house. And at that time, my darling little children, Maynard III and Brooke, decided they wanted to sell lemonade at a lemonade stand in front of the house. That didn't work.
Yeah.
But that was manipulating in their mind.
Right, right.
But we came to the conclusion that we didn't know what we were going to call this company that I was thinking about opening. And I said, well, I don't know what we're going to call it, but whatever it's going to be First Class. And that's how we got the name.
So did you open First Class before or after your arcade in the airport?
After.
After your arcade.
I think.
in the airport.
Or maybe at the same time.
Let's talk about your arcade in the airport, because that was done under Maynard's inclusion, like making sure that the 51% or 59%?
I don't think it was. I think this was before. I'm not sure.
You're not sure. But you did have a business in there.
I sure did.
And let's talk about that, because who was your partner in the arcade?
Janice Alexander Perkins. And Tolly Hartsfield. Can you believe that?
No.
It was called BJT. That was the name of the company. B, Bunnie, J for Janice, and T for Tolly. And so that opened. It was a game room. We had pinball machines.
And how did y'all get the pinball machines?
Janice was the one who researched it. And T.M. Alexander, whose idea it was that we come together as a group, helped us get funded. And we got enough funds to buy games. Janice picked out the games.
And you went into business.
And I went into business at the airport.
Without knowledge, without Maynard knowing, right?
Yeah, yes. And he called me one day and said, Maynard and I were divorced.
Right.
He called and said, what have you done? I said, what do you mean, what have I done? I said, I'm just trying to take care of our children as they have been accustomed to, my smart alecky self. And that's what I'm doing. And so we had a business. That business was thriving until pinball machines went out of business. You know, at some point you could find a little pinball machine, like my phone. Yeah. And you could play pinball with the machine in your hand. Right. And that's when the company went down.
And so you had.
But you know what was so funny is Janice and Tolly Hartsfield and I were supposed to take the quarters out of the machine every week. And that's when we hired Michael Malden. Do you know who Michael Malden is? Michael Malden had a son named Jermaine Dupree.
Oh.
Remember him?
Well, who doesn't know Jermaine Dupree?
Right.
Yeah.
So Jermaine went on to do his music stuff.
Yeah.
But Jermaine would do his little slides in the pinball. You know, the little slide back. You would slide your feet and come back. Jermaine would do that through the game rooms.
So he got his start in the game room at
He got his start in the game room at the airport.
Interesting.
And I remember once when his father, who said that he wanted Jermaine wanted to drop out of school. And I said, you don't need to do that. Let him stay in school. He said, well, I'm going to let him do what he wants to do. He did, and that was the best thing that happened to Jermaine, which means that I don't know what I'm talking about all the time.
Well, that was just one instance.
Yeah.
But you had your own run in the music business, right?
Yes, I did.
With SOS Band.
The SOS Band.
And Cameo. So.
Now the question is, how did that get started? SOS is what I started first.
Yes.
Now, how did that get started? Do you know how it got started?
You never told me how it got started. You just told me it did, because we were just talking one day, and you were just like, it happened, and that's it.
It just happened.
Does that happen often to you in your life? Have you realized that your path is just ordered and that you just go with it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was a blessing. And I just followed my instinct. It's instinct.
Yeah.
Tenacity and instinct. Do you have the tenacity to really do this? Can you make it work? Are you willing to step out on faith and tenacity and guts and see where it takes you? If you're honest, if you're fair, if you do what my mother says, don't lie, I think you'll be blessed. Whether you're blessed by God, Jesus, or Buddha, you will be blessed.
Do you have any regrets?
None. If I had regrets, I wouldn't be me. Someone asked me recently, they were talking about my marriages. How many times have you been married? I think they said 3. I said, you missed one. I've been married 4 times. One was a marriage that was abusive, verbally abusive. I found out that I didn't know what verbal abuse was. Nobody had ever yelled at me. Nobody had ever called me out of my name. Nobody had ever threatened me. I was protected. I was blessed. And I knew I could do what I wanted to do. I was confident. That's a good word. I'm looking for adjectives.
Yeah.
And so I never doubted what my father said to me. Shug, you can do whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. And so far, so good. But that's a blessing.
Let's talk about, really quickly, the day Maynard died. Where were you?
The day Maynard died. At the Push Convention. I was working for a company. I had clients. If you look in my book, you'll see a line of clients. One of my clients was the Burger King Corporation.
Yep, I remember you telling me that because you got that contract because you went and raised cattle on Candler Road.
I sure did. You know, they weren't serving us right. The burgers were. It was. Were we picketing? Not we didn't picket, but we were complaining about the burgers. Mm-hmm. And the Burger King burgers were charbroiled, mm-hmm. I think. It's all strange. But, yeah, and what's this man's name who was very important, who bought some Burger Kings? Kareem, is that a name?
Kareem Abdul, the basketball player? I don't know.
I don't remember. I don't remember that story. But I remember there was a Burger King across the street from
South DeKalb.
South DeKalb Mall.
It's still there, on Taylor Road.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, that wasn't one. But there was another one across the street from a church on not Cascade. There was one on Cascade, but this one was across the street from. The park.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that one. But you had them as a client, and you were at the Push Convention when Maynard died?
I was at the Push Convention when Maynard died.
Mm-hmm. And who told you? Like, what was going on that day? What
was going on that day? My son-in-law was at the airport. Mm-hmm. He went to pick up Maynard. Howie Hodges was at the airport. And his wife, my daughter, Elizabeth, were at the airport picking up their father and father-in-law when Maynard died. He had a heart attack at the airport and died. Mm-hmm. They called me. I called Valerie. Mm-hmm. No, I called his office because I figured if anybody knew right away was he dead, it would be the office. Because he'd gone to Washington to work on a project concerning the unions. Mm-hmm. And so he died in the airport. What a place for him to die.
Right.
In an airport.
And he started the airport.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is his biggest legacy?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Did he talk about Atlanta?
Everywhere he went. He would invite people to come to Atlanta.
Did you fall in love with Atlanta through his eyes before you got here?
Yes.
You did?
Yes, I did. You couldn't help but fall in love with Atlanta. Atlanta is the mecca of civil rights. It's got the AU Center. It's got Martin Luther King. It's got churches, Big Bethel, First Congregational. It's got one of the first black churches in downtown Atlanta. It's got Friendship, where his father was pastor. So if you come to Atlanta and you know Atlanta's history, first of all, you got to take some time to know the history and know the legacy. John Wesley Dobbs, who was the father of, in my opinion, the father of what happened on Dobbs, what's the name of that street? Auburn Avenue. Mm-hmm. There are some other organizations, the Hungry Club. The Hungry Club was an organization that met on certain days. Mm-hmm. It met in the MCA on Auburn Avenue when there was one
When
there.
there was one.
And they would have speakers. And the speakers would be people who had achieved something
Okay.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they would go and make a speech. I have a copy of Maynard's last speech, which he did in 2003 at the Hungry Club. It may even be in the book.
What do you think your greatest accomplishment is?
My greatest accomplishment was probably my soul, not losing my soul. My greatest accomplishment, and something that you could see in the book, was starting first class.
Do you think people come to Atlanta and lose their soul, or do they come to Atlanta and gain their
They
soul?
come to Atlanta and find it.
And find it. Is it hard?
It's not hard. You just have to know that you got a soul, recognize it when you see it, tune into the soul of Black Atlanta, and there's your soul. But it was a combination of what I wanted to do and what Maynard wanted to do and how it happened to come together, which was simply a blessing.
What do you want people to take away from your life?
My tenacity.
You go back to your tenacity.
Yeah, because you gotta have tenacity to get up and do it.
Yeah.
If you don't have tenacity, you won't get up and do it. So that's right. My love for people, my honesty that my mother taught me. If you can't tell, if you don't know something good about somebody, keep your mouth shut. Is what my mother said. And I try to live on that. So I look for good in people. So look for the good in people. Your tenacity to do what you think is right. The what's the name of that prayer that I like? The Serenity Prayer. Know the difference. Know the things that you can change. Know the things that you can't change, and know the difference. And give your energy to the things that you can change. Put those things that you can't change on a boilerplate. And maybe go back and visit them every now and then. But make sure that you have done what you can change.
Your recommended read as an avid reader, as a I think you're a teacher, even though you didn't, get into a classroom per se.
Yes, I did.
You did?
I taught at Bennett College.
When did you teach at Bennett College?
Don't ask me.
You
But
never told me you taught at
I
Bennett
taught
College.
1 year
That's
at Bennett
probably-
College. I taught secretarial science. I taught people how to be secretaries.
Do you think that the role of women evolved?
Oh yes, thank God. Thank God. Which is one of the reasons, and I say this with all the love in my heart that I can muster. I don't think I ever got the credit for what I did for Maynard.
Yeah.
Because when you look at people who were close to him, who get the credit for what he did, when it was the pillow talk between Maynard and his wife that came up with the NPUs. Well, how many people know that the NPUs came from Bunnie and Maynard, talking about the need for community involvement?
Yeah.
Back in that day, women had a place, and it was in the kitchen, at home, keep your mouth shut, so nobody would talk about you. I remember one time I went somewhere, and I didn't have on gloves. I might have said that in my book. And somebody wanted to know why I didn't have on gloves. And then I went somewhere and I had on gloves. And somebody wanted to know, well, why did she have on gloves? So that's when one of the reasons I said, okay, I need to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
If I want to walk around here in a jean jacket, I will do that. If I don't, I won't. So I am the master of my soul.
Yeah. So what is your final advice to newcomers of Atlanta chasing their dream? Outside of tenacity.
Yeah, because you know I was going to say that. Get to know the history, the real history. Read some books. Come over here and read some of these books. Go to the Atlanta Auburn Avenue Library and read the history. Know the legacy of Auburn Avenue. Know that statue on the corner of Auburn Avenue and what's the name of that street?
Freedom Parkway?
Yeah, it's not Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
It's John Wesley Dobbs. A lot of people think until I complained and said, we need to put up a sign that says this is John Wesley Dobbs, not Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything. God knows the man did so much for the community. Mm-hmm. But John Wesley Dobbs was the one who sort of ordained that particular street.
Mm-hmm. Did you know the lineage of Maynard before you guys got married?
I know the lineage of Maynard.
Being that he was the, grandson or great-grandson of John?
I didn't know that much about it.
You didn't know?
No.
When you finally realized the lineage, what was your initial, like, were you like wowed or?
I was supportive. I was extremely supportive. I'm going to tell you one story, and you can use it if you want to, or you can not use it. Mm-hmm. I was at a meeting, and someone told me I just made the brown paper bag test. Have you ever heard of that?
I have.
You have? Mm-hmm. I hadn't. What is the
Growing up in North Carolina, you didn't hear about the brown paper bag test?
Never heard it.
Okay.
Never heard it. I wanted to know what it was. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, if you're darker than a brown paper bag, you won't make it in society in Atlanta. So my next question was, what is society? Now, I'm a member of the NAACP. I belong to Friendship Baptist Church. I was doing some volunteer work with CORE, Congress of Racial, whatever, forget the name. And I'm doing my thing, and Maynard's doing his thing, and I didn't know what brown paper bag meant, but I knew how that made me feel. And then she said, the only reason that you got in is because of your hair. So then that made me ashamed of my hair for a while. So anyway, I've been through my little challenges, but I had the what?
Tenacity.